today we're going to review this, the Niche Zero grinder. It's a grinder that has confounded my expectations in a good way. So let me tell you about where this came from. This I first saw on Indiegogo, and for that reason ignored, because it was from an unknown manufacturer, it was crowdfunding, and it made some big promises about fixing problems with coffee, and those three things together are a giant red flag. And I will broadly ignore anything that has those three things on crowdfunding or anywhere else, because most of the time it's just not going to happen. There's been a lot of companies turned up, new to manufacturing, going to do something big and bold, and they're going to kickstart it or put it on Indiegogo, and you get nothing. You get burned usually. So I ignored it, to my detriment, to be honest, because for every rule that I have, there's probably an exception, and this might just be one. So I wasn't going to look at it, I wasn't going to review it, but then they got in touch and said, did I want a unit to try? And I said, no, I have a Patreon, which is amazing. So thank you to Patreon supporters, which means that I can buy the equipment that I review, so it's an independent review. And I explained this to them, and we agreed that I would buy a unit. And they gave me a small discount, for which I'm very grateful, but I still bought this, and this will be given away, sort of, to a Patreon backer. So this thing is £500 in the UK, and ships, I think, all over the world. They do a 110 and a 220 volt model. And for the money, I have to say, compared to other grinders at the same price point, it's pretty small, it's pretty light, it's about 5 kilos, but it feels very well built. It feels very nicely put together, it feels really solid. It sounds solid when it grinds, it just feels good. Now, design-wise, I can't tell you how to feel about how something looks. It looks like a kitchen appliance. It has a little bit of coffee grinder in there, a little bit of juicer in there too. It comes, I think, in just two colors, a white and a black. But I like how it looks. The detail around the wood is nice. It's built by someone who's built things before. And this, I think, is really key. It might be a new company, but Martin, the guy behind it, has spent a long time designing and building products, and I think that really, really shows. So it's called the Niche Zero because its big promise is zero retention, which we'll get into also in a little bit. Now, the design, I think, is interesting because design is about picking problems and finding solutions for those problems. There's a whole suite of problems you can look at with a coffee grinder, and I think the selection that they've chosen to fix or attempt to fix here is a very smart selection. For example, this is not a grinder trying to fix dosing for you. You're going to weigh your coffee beans, put them in, grind them, right? The grinder is going to do no work to help you dose your coffee whatsoever. That's not a problem it's interested in solving. Here, what they're really trying to do is get out everything that you put in. The whole point of zero retention is that there's nothing left inside, which is mostly true. It's not entirely true. There's always going to be a little bit of retention. And even if you put 18.5 in and get 18.5 out, that doesn't mean zero retention. There probably was some coffee retained and exchanged and replaced, the old replaced by the new, and it retains a consistent amount. But that amount isn't very much. So it is definitely an espresso-focused grinder. And so the workflow with this is very, very simple. You've got an on-off switch on the side, you've got a lid. Under the lid, you have your bean funnel where you're going to load your coffee in once you've weighed it. Conical burr set in here. Sort of Matza Coney burrs in here. The funnel is also your grind adjuster, which is nice. It's a stepless adjustment with a little indicator on here as well to see where you've been, where you're going. And coffee in, close the lid. There's a little micro switch here and turn it on. It really is very, very simple. And I think that's a really good thing. Not only for longevity, but in terms of componentry that's gone into this. This is well built. There's a good motor in here. There's a good set of burrs in here if you like conical burrs. And that's very nearly it, with the exception of one thing, which is this little thing here, which is your dosing cup, which I think is beautifully made because this is just under 58 mils, which means if you want to dose from here into your portafilter, just put your portafilter on top upside down and flip everything over. Zero mess, zero fuss. It's a beautiful little thing that kind of should be available with all coffee grinders. The idea of sort of tipping ground coffee into a portafilter, the spill, the mess, the needing an additional funnel, all of that noise, I'm not interested in it. I like this kind of Zen approach of what's the least I have to do to get great results. That's really a thing I like a lot. So let's talk about performance. How is it to use to make coffee with? Well, as I said, it is a conical burr set now. It's the same burr set as you might find in a Matza Coney. And I am not a huge fan of conical burr sets compared to flat burr sets. My preference has always been for flat burr sets. I pulled a bunch of shots with this and I had some very, very tasty espresso with it. I did pull shots with this against a Mythos one as a kind of benchmarking tool, and I really liked the shots that I got off this. I slightly preferred the shots of the Mythos for having a little bit more clarity to them, which isn't hugely surprising. It's a good flat burr grinder. I really like the shots from it, and the espresso blend I was using was benchmarked against it, so the odds were stacked in the Mythos one's favor, but I really did enjoy the coffee I got from this thing. Some really nice shots, didn't speed up too much in the second half, didn't show too much in the way of signs of channeling. I was pretty happy with the shots that I got from this thing. I think there's a couple of really neat, clever little things here. Adjusting the grind is very easy, very intuitive. The spacing between sort of dots and sort of guidance is good. You need to make a decent enough movement to have a substantial change in grind. So you feel like you can tweak quite easily, which is kind of nice on this. There is a calibration function for the little dot under here. If you take it all the way fine, you can then adjust this bottom ring so that it lines up with calibrate, and you should be pretty calibrated grinder to grinder to grinder. Now, this wasn't perfect for me, but it was a pretty good starting place and a pretty good idea, I think. Certainly you have way more calibration than you would do with most typical grinders that just have a selection of random numbers from 0 to 9 that you're somewhere on at some point. So overall, pretty happy. And I spent most of the time pulling shots in the middle of the espresso region. In terms of things that I didn't like as much, I wish this held a little bit more coffee, because sometimes I wanted to make a large batch of coffee with this. I'll often make a liter of coffee and I wanted to use it for filter coffee, and it performs pretty well for filter coffee. Again, my preference might be for flat burr grinders, but I really enjoyed the coffee I got from this. But you can just sort of get about 50, 55 grams in here. I kind of wish it was just a nice even 60. That's just me. Now, if you do want to grind for sort of a medium-sized batch of filter from a half litre up to a litre, you're going to be too coarse for the dial, which is a bit of a shame. I know some people have started putting dots on the other side of their dials to sort of track where they're going with coarser grind settings, and I think that might be an interesting improvement for the future. And I suppose one of the bigger complaints that I have with this is that it does suffer popcorning a little bit towards the end of grinding a shot. So those last few beans, as they're grinding, tend to bounce around quite a lot, can take a little while to sort of suck them through. You're looking at least a 20-second grind time for 18 to 20 grams of coffee, so it's relatively slow, but not so slow that that's a problem for me if I was pulling shots at home or anywhere else. But it does popcorn a little bit, and that means those beans do grind in a way a little bit coarser than the other beans, which isn't ideal. It's not a big problem. Like I said, it doesn't really damage the shots generally, but if you compared, let's say, 18 grams of coffee that had not popcorned at all by, let's say, grinding 25 grams and stopping early, to 18 grams that did have some popcorning in it, then I would see a 4, maybe 5-second variance in shot time as a result. So having maybe a better auger system sort of feed beans in, I don't really know what the answer is, but I do know that popcorning does change your grind a little bit, and so the more popcorning there is, the more variance you'll have as a result. That may be why some of the shots don't have the same kind of clarity as a Mythos with a hopper full of coffee. You know, grinding through like this in any grinder that you'll grind through will produce a small variance in grind setting as a result of those last beans having no force behind them kind of driving them into the burrs, no weight of coffee behind them. That's true on an EK, that's true if you single dosed a Mythos, that's true if you single dosed sort of anything really, like a Baratza grinder or something like that. Those last few beans on any grinder will popcorn. In some cases, they popcorn more than others. That's all. So that's something I'd like to see addressed in the future, and also I'd be interested to see if they ever do build a flat burr version of this grinder. That would get me very excited indeed. But I should give you a summary, right? Like I should give you a summary of how I feel. And to be honest, charmed. I feel charmed by this grinder. I just really like it. I like the way it's built. I like the design thinking behind it. I think it's really enjoyable to use. If you said, how does it stack up against a Malkoenig EK43? Well, I would say that's a very dangerous question to ask, because the EK is a nice set of burrs, accidentally designed by Malkoenig at some point, attached to not a particularly compelling grinder. The EK is not beautiful, it's heavy, it's expensive, it's not particularly pleasurable to use. It has a nice set of burrs. This is a pleasure to use. This sort of highlights a lot of the flaws of a grinder like the EK because of its ease and pleasure of use. And I'll give you an example of just what feels nice and simple. I got a bag of coffee from a friend, and just a small bag, and I wanted to dial it in. And so here I would dose 18.5 grams, grind 18.5 grams, pull a shot, and make an adjustment as necessary. And yeah, the retention isn't completely zero. There's a little bit of exchange happening there, but it's so little that you don't need to purge between grind adjustments, right? I would adjust the grind and just grind a fresh dose straight afterwards. And I had no issues with that. It meant that very quickly, very easily, I could dial in to exactly where I needed to be with almost no excessive waste, right? I got a lot of shots out of a bag of coffee, and I don't think I'm alone in people using this grinder. So from a waste perspective, it's pretty great. The retention is certainly low enough for me to be very, very happy with it. I don't think there's any issues with its retention. It's just a pleasure to use. And so, yeah, the way that this works is that Patreon, that fund each month lets me go and buy equipment to review independently. But I want to keep this. I'm not going to give it away. So I'm going to buy a brand new one to give away to Patreon backers, and this one I'm going to keep. I kind of just want it around. There's a lot of uses for a grinder like this for me, and it's rare that I want to add to my collection of stuff. It's rare that I want one more piece of kit in my life. I have enough stuff. The whole point of Patreon is to give it away. I don't want to accumulate endless stuff. The good news is they build these in 110 and 220 volt, which means that I can sort of open it up to Patreon backers all over the world. It doesn't matter. I'll ship it to wherever it needs to go. And I kind of like that I get to give away a brand new one, and it can be white or black, and they can choose. I'm going to keep this one though. Overall, I'm impressed. As a sort of first-time product, a first-time manufacturer, I think they've knocked it out of the park. That's not to say it's flawless, but it's great. It's very good. And I've just been enthusiastic about it to other people, which has got to be a pretty good sign. So there you go. That is my review of the Niche Zero. Do you have a niche? Do you have one of these? How is your experience so far? Are you seeing less coffee wastage? Are you happy with the shots that you're getting? Does the popcorning drive you crazy, or does it not bother you at all? Are you brewing filter coffee? What kind of results are you having? I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Please share them with all of us. That's it for today, so I'll say thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.